Hilchis Zchiah Umatanah Perek Asiri. Now we started learning. We started from Perek Ches. The Rambam was speaking about the dinim of divrei shchiv mira keksuv mekum surim dam. And therefore, if a shchiv mira says to give a certain item to someone, so it's as if it was given away, and mele that person is koinet. And we learned that he's koinet lachar misa, and he's also the shchiv mira could have charata. But the etzem din that even without a kinyan, it has a din keksuv and kumsurim dam. That's what we learned. Now over there we were talking about a specific item, or all his items. Masha'inkan over here, the chiddush of this first halach is that when a person says snu mana lepleni, so maybe it could mean a certain mana, it could mean a certain mana, and maybe he's referring to a mana cover. So over here we're saying no, that he means to give this amount of money, and therefore you have to give that amount of money from his nechasim. Now the Maisa is the Rambam doesn't say this clearly, but the Rashba says it, and then the Ramah says it, that this din, that when a person says tnu mana lepleni, you have to give a mana to that pleni, that's only if this shchivmira, when he dies, there was a yerusha of money. There was actually money there. So memela, some of that money you have to give lepleni. Masha'inkan, if there was no money, there was only nechasim, and you could go ahead and sell the nechasim and get money, that's not considered tnu mana lepleni. That's not included in this tnu mana lepleni. Tnu mana lepleni is only, itaka means money. And memela, and the chiddush over here is, the chiddush that the Rambam is saying, that it's not referring to a specific money. Because we're not chosheh that maybe he's referring to a specific money and we don't know which one, but rather it means money. And memela, you have to give it. There's money there, you have to give the money, whatever it is, to whatever he said lepleni. Perek Asiri. Shchiv mira sha'amar tnu mana lepleni. He said tnu mana lepleni umes. So the din is yitnu lachar misa. Shadivri shchiv mira kiksuvin ukimsurin dami. Maybe he's referring to a specific mana, and that's cover somewhere, and that's what he meant. But Sha'inkin, you don't have to give the other money. So say no, that he has to give that money. You have to give a money, even whichever money. But again, only b'tnai. The Rambam doesn't say this tnai, but the Ramah says it, and the Rashba says it, that only b'tnai, that there's taka money there. V'chein, shchiv mera sha'amar halvo epikodin, sheyesh lu yad pleni, Tnu oisi lepleni is dvar of kayom. Now here is a chidush that normally we say to transfers. If someone owes you money, and if it's a milva al peh, so then you can't transfer that money unless it's a maimet shloshim. There's a special din that if the malva and the leiva and someone else is there, so the malva could say that the money that the leiva owes him, he should give to someone else. And that din works also by pikadon. By pikadon, if someone has a pikadon of yours, so you could say that pikadon which that person has of mine should be given to someone else. That's the din of maimet shloshim. And that's a special din. But here we're saying that the din of a shchiv mira, div shchiv mira, is kiksuv and kimsurim dami, would work without maimet shloshim. In other words, the shchiv mira says that someone owes me money, and that money that person owes me should be given to someone else. Or I have a pikadon by someone, and that pikadon which I have by this person should be given to someone else. So in this it works without maimet shloshim. That's saying v'chein shchiv mira sha'amar halvo a pikadon sheyesh lo b'yad pleni tnu eisel lepleni is dvar of kayomin ve'ein tzarich l'maimet shloshim. That's din number one. Now there's another din that if a person has a milva b'shtar, so in order to transfer the milva b'shtar, so you have to go ahead and have ksiva u'masira. We learned this already. That ksiva u'masira, which means you have to give over the shtar to the new person the money is going to be owed to, and you have to have a shtar saying that you're giving over that shtar. That's the din of ksiva u'masira. That's normally by a shtar. Masha'inkin, when you give over a shtar, b'maimet shloshim, you can say that I have a shtar that this person owes me money, and that shtar should be given over to this person. Memela, it becomes that person's without ksiva masira, even though it wasn't given over yet, and there was no shtar on the masira, but nevertheless, that's considered a good kinyan. That's the chiddush. V'chein im amar tnu shtar pleni lepleni izacha b'ma sheyesh b'shtar u'keilu kasem b'masar. Afal pi shel leimoshech hashtar. Even though there was no mashiach on the shtar, nevertheless he's kaina. And that's chiddush number two. And as we're learning a chiddush, first of all, that a shchiv mira could transfer a loan, even a milva al peh, without maimet shloshim. A milva al peh, that is a pikadon, without maimet shloshim. That's din number one. Din number two we're learning is that a shchiv mira could transfer a shtar. And those the schus of the star, that normally you need ksiva masira for a star. Over here you don't need ksiva masira. If he says that give the star to Pliny, so that person becomes the balchev. Now here's a third chiddush, another chiddush, is that normally when a person gives over a chayv to someone else, so even though he gave over the chayv to someone else, he was, let's say, he sold the star to someone else, he gave the star to someone else, b'ksivu masira, but be'emes, the loan is still to the original person. In other words, Shimon owes Reuven money. Shimon owes Reuven money. Now Reuven goes ahead, Reuven has a star, and Reuven goes ahead and sells this star to Levi. Or gives the star to Levi. So now really Shimon owes Levi money. But the emes is that Shimon really owes Reuven money. It's just that Levi has the right to collect the money that Shimon owes Reuven. I mean, Minatera, it's really the chayv of the Shimon is to Reuven. Just midrabanon, there's a din that Reuven could transfer that schus of collecting that money to Levi. That's a drabanon dikadin. But ma'am is Minatera, you can't really transfer this schus. This schus is not a transferable schus. A star is only the raya. You can't be koine the chayv with the kinyan of the star. So therefore, in reality, Shimon really still owes Reuven the money. It's just that Levi has a right to collect that money that Shimon owes Reuven. So if Reuven is going to go ahead and be mochel Shimon that money, so the star is mochel. B'medvar mamurim, by a regular when he gives him the star b'ksivu masira. Masha'enken, when it's a divrei shchivmira. Divrei shchivmira, when a person gave over the star with a divrei shchivmira, so that has a din, as the Chacham gave it a din, as if midiraisa that chayv was transferred, and now as if Shimon really owes Levi, Shimon doesn't owe Reuven anymore. Not like when it's b'ksiva masira, but rather Shimon Taka owes Levi, he doesn't owe Reuven anymore, and therefore now Taka Reuven can't be Moichel Shimon. That's this din. V'ein hayerish yachol limchil shtar zeh sheniten b'matna shchimera. Why? Mepnei ma ha-meicher inesun shtar chev lechaverei v'chazer u'mochlei is hayerish chazer u'mochlei hayerish mochel. And ushchiv mira shenosun shtar chev ein hayerish yachol mimchil. So the Rambam is being mazur. What's Taka the hesber? When a person gives over a star, so then the original malve could still be meichel the chev. Masha'inkin, when it's given over with a matna shchimera, then it cannot be nimchal. What's the hezbollah? So Ram says, "Mipnei shekinyan arayah b'shtar midivrei." Be'em is the whole musik that a person should be koina. The chayv is only a drabanan dika musik. Since midiraisa, the chayv is really to the original lender, and memela to the yoirish, which is a yoirish of the original lender. Lefichach hayerish adayin ze ashtar shaleu menatera. The be'em is menatera, the star is still the original lenders, or the yoirish of the original lender, and therefore a meichle, and therefore you can be meichelet. However, a matna shchivmira, when a person gives something away with the matna shchivmira, he gives the star away with the matna shchivmira. Aval pishi midivreim, even though it's only a drabanan. The whole musig of matna shchivmira is a drabanan. Not only by shtaris is midrabanan. The whole musig of matna shchivmira is midrabanan. But nevertheless, also esik shel teira, they gave it the take of keilu it's a menatera dikadin, ukeilu kana mamish b'shtar menatera, as if menatera. Now this loan is not to Reuven, but it's rather to Levi, to the person that he gave it matna shchivmira v'yigia liyadei, and v'leinishal liyerish bekinyan and leficha cheina mechel. So the uftu of the fact that a matna shchivmira has a din as if it's kishel teira to zuf, that now the yoirish can be meichel because the chayv is keilu. Now the chacham mamuvgit on that the chayv should become the chayv to the recipient of the matna shchivmira, as if minatera this is his chayv, and therefore the original yoirish cannot be meichel. Halacha gimel shchivmira she'amar mona lepleini biyodi. Over here again, we're not talking about that he's giving something. This is a haidah. We learned about it before. Shchivmira she'amar mona lepleini biyodi is amar tnu. If he also adds the word tnu, is noisnin. However, le'amar tnu, if he didn't add the word tnu, a noisnin. Why? Because shema le'amar mona yesh lepleini biyodi el kedei sheyemur al yorshiv sheyesh lemam. So he's stuck a shchivmira and he's sick. And he's afraid maybe, he's not a matzav machmas misa necessarily, but he's a shchivmira. He realizes the matzav that he's a shchivmira, but nevertheless he's worried that maybe people are going to think that his children are rich, and therefore he's saying that mana lepleini biyadi kilo, like trying to say that there's chayvus, don't think that my children are so rich. So if he said tnu, So Mela that confirms that this taka means what he's saying. And Mela Manal plain biyadi you taka have to give him. So that means that the taka means it. Masha'inkin knows you're not. It's not the pshat. His tenu is what's causing you to give it. The tenu is giving mitzad Manal plain biyadi. It's not. This is not a tzavos. This is not a matna shchivmira. This is a hidah shchivmira. But when is it a hidah shchivmira considered a proper hidah? We're talking about a hidah without a teveya. It's not like that person is coming to be teveya. Over here, it's talking about without a teveya. So Memele, he's just saying Mana Lepleni Biyadi. So when do we say that it's not Lasbia as Bonov? A person doesn't want people to think he's rich. He says Tnu. If he adds the word Tnu, so then we name on that it's Taka Ernst, and Memele, he Taka owes that money. Lefichachim Omer Zed Derech Hidah V'Lehoyisham Chashash Arama. So notice if it was clearly in a Eifon Hidah, and the Tzir exactly. In other words, there's a kshash when there's Lahazbi as Manav. In other words, he's saying something in a situation, he wants people to think that his children don't have that much money. So he says, that person, we owe this person money, that person money. Masha'inkin, if he said a Derech Hidah, even without saying the word Tunu, you have to know the Tzir exactly, so then we consider it a Hidah. In other words, as we mentioned before, Mishatani Boch, to say stamazid mishatani boch, a person saying narishkeiten, that's for sure not by a shchivmira. But there's still a kshash of shalei lasbi as bonov, and that's taken care of by saying the word tnu, or if it was said derech hidah and not derech harama. And kiyetzebei roes avim sheit memois b'shida tevel migdal. The Yorshim saw the father putting money away in some type of a box or so amwar, whatever, and va'omar shel pleiniin, and he tells to the children it belongs to pleini or shel ma'aser sheniin. So the question is, how do we look at those words? Do we take those words seriously? Is im kemoiser, if he was saying it to them, kemoiser knows he wanted to notify them, so it was nikar that he was saying the truth. So then dvar of kayamin. However, im kemarim, maybe he just didn't want them to use the money. He didn't want them to think that the money is his. Maybe he says it belongs to his person. What's meiser knows there's a concern that maybe it was only being meirim in order for the children not to use the money. So then leomer klum. So you have to assess whether this was kemoiser. It's like you have to know how do you assess exactly if this is kemoiser or this is kemeirim. V'chein im bo echad va'omer lehem ani reisis havichem shehit min mois b'shida tevo migdal va'omar shel pleinihem or shel meisehem. And vice to is over here it's talking about in a case where this person is also tining that it was kemoiser. In other words, it wasn't. In other words, if there's a kshash of kemeirim, so mele there's nothing to talk about. So even if they know for a fact that this is what he said, it doesn't mean anything. But over here it's talking about this echad is coming and he's saying it to them and he's tining that it was kemoiser. In other words, he said it to them, but even that this was the fact. Is imhoya tmunim babayis, if this money was lying in the house and this person that's saying about this money doesn't have any access to that money, is le'omer klum, because we don't believe him. We don't believe in what he's saying. However, besada, if this money is lying in the field, is dvar of kayam, and why? Because since that person has access to it, so that person could have taken away that money, and he's coming along and saying, listen, that money which Bamas I could take away, you should know that I heard from your father what that money is. So then dvar of kayam, kololi shel davar, kol sheilu yachol little, money that he's able to take. So he has the kamiku, he could have taken away the money if he would have wanted stamazay, do something which wasn't true. Is the end dvar of kayama. So then we accept what his words of saying what this money is, that your father, I heard your father saying clearly that this money belongs to this person or this money is meiser. However, v'mlav, if that person doesn't really have access to the money, so memela leomer klum, we don't accept what he said. Halacha zayin, harei shehoya mitztair al moy sheiniach leov. He knew that his father left money, but he didn't know where it is. He knew his father hid some money somewhere, but he doesn't know where. And they came b'chaleim, they told him, this is the amount of money that it is. B'mokim pleinihin, and it finds itself in this place. And v'shel pleinihin, and it belongs to a certain person, or v'shel ma'aser shenihin. And lepeil umatzam b'mokim pleinihin, he found what they told him the chaleim was true. In other words, it was takim mokim plein nishnamale, ubemin nishnamale. It was the amount that they said in the cholim, and the place where they said in the cholim. Is the Gemara Zchiah Umatanah? This was a Maisa that says in the Gemara. In In other words, you don't have to accept the rest of the words. In other words, the fact that some of the cholim is true is not an indication that the rest of the cholim is true. And al derech, like just we said before, that if someone comes along and tells you this, so if that person has access to it, so he has nemonis. Mashenkin, if the person has no access to it, he has no nemonis. And al derech, cholim has no nemonis. And therefore you could take the money and keep it, because lepel pashas you find in the house, it's yours because it was your father's. Halacha ches. Chiv mera shehoida sheyesh lepleini biyodi money. He made a hidah, and there was a hidah, and even it wasn't derech haram, like he said before in halacha dalet. It was derech hidah v'lo yeshach shash haram. He was moida sheyesh lepleini biyodi money. And then v'amru chas yiseimim that chazar v'amru lanu avinu paraitiv. So normally when a person is moida, and then later on he tines that he made a mistake in his hidah, we don't accept that. Because since lapel there was already a hidah, so the hidah is baldin k'me'edam dami, and we don't accept that he made a mistake. But a shchiv mirah, since there's a problem that maybe it wasn't his das, wasn't slula, so when he was maida, and then later on he comes along and he tines that I made a mistake. So then we do accept it. That's a special din by a shchiv mirah. So a shchiv mirah shahida sheyesh lo pleni biyodi mon, and then v'amru yiseim that chazer v'amru lanu avinu paraitiv, that he made a mistake, is nemonim. And the nishboim al zeh shvuas heses, and the nishba shvuas heses that their father tained that he made a mistake. However, that's talking about when he didn't say tnu. However, Omar tnu, if he was made and he said tnu, and then Omru Yisem Mechazer v'Omru Lanu Avinu Paraitiv, is ein nemonim, the Yisem aren't nemon to say that the father said Paraitiv after he already said tnu. Halacha Yud. Omar Mona Lepleni Biyadi, and then v'Omru Yisem Nesananu. Because he said Mana Lepleni Biyadi, and they're tining good. He said Mana Lepleni Biyadi, and based on that, we gave the money based on what he said. Mana Lepleni Biyadi is Einamon. Why? Sharei Le'omar Tnu. He never said Tnu. U'minayim Yodu Shechayav Melitin. Whereas L'chura, this din is that if he said Tnu, so it makes sense that they would give. Masha'in, if he didn't say Tnu, for them to know that it wasn't Derech Harama, and therefore he gave it. They gave it. We don't believe them. But just by saying Mana Lepleni Biyadi, they're going to give it. However, Amr Tnu, Amr Yisem Nesananu. He said Mana Lepleni Biyadi, and he said Tnu, and then he said Nesananu. Is then his nemonim. The nishboin shvos heses shenosnu. Then the nishba shvos heses is nachamal. So a shchiv mirah which was made that Mana Lepleni Biyadi, and then he didn't say the word Tnu, and then the same mataining that later on he tained to, so they're believed. However, if he said tnu, so then they're not believed to say that later on he tained that he was to. They're not believed to say that later on he tained to. That's the number one, a chilik between, in other words, when he said tnu or when he's just believed because it wasn't derech harama. Now we're in another din. A person said mana lepleni biyadi, and the same mataining that they gave. So if he said tnu, so then we believe the Yisayim, because then we assume that the Yisayim Mustaman knew that they were supposed to give, and that they gave. Masha'enkin, if he didn't say Tnu, so then we don't believe the Yisayim, because we don't believe that they actually gave based on just Mana Lepleni Biyadi without Tnu, and therefore they have to pay. Halacha Yud Beis. Shchiv mirah shenosen Mana le'echad, v'amr le'hoylech Mana zu lepleni. Go bring this Mana lepleni. And v'halach u'matzi shemes, and now when this shliach finds that this person was already mess. Now the question is, who does this money belong to? Does the money belong to the yarshim of the person that was supposed to be the recipient, or does the money belong to the yarshim of the mishalech, of the shchiv mirah? The question is, was this recipient ever koine? So it's azoi. Im kayim hoye b'shosh nosen li'ah shchiv mirah. When the shchiv mirah gave it to the shliach, this recipient, this makabel, was alive. Is Yinosnul Yesh Mishnah Shtalchale, because he was already koina this matana. Since he was already koina this matana, so therefore his Yarshim not get the matana. The Divish Chimra Kiksuvim Kumsurimim. However, if he was no longer a kayam, in other words, he wasn't alive when the shchimra gave it to the shliach, so obviously he wasn't kena. Is yachzru yesh mishalech, so then it has to go back to the yarshim mishalech. Shein kin yilemes, he wasn't kena, he was already a mess. So memela, so it still belonged to the mishalech, and memela now it belongs to the yarshim mishalech. That's this din. Now in the din bemis, there's two chidushim over here, because l'chura a shchimra is you're only kind of from the Shchiv Mirah after the Shchiv Mirah dies. So Einachanami, this person was alive when the Shchiv Mirah gave him the money. When the Shchiv Mirah gave him the money, he was alive. He gave the Shliach the money. But Lepel, this person, this recipient, died before the Shchiv Mirah died. So if this recipient died before the Shchiv Mirah died, so how does it go to the Yarshei of the recipient? L'churi, he was never kainet. Why are you saying he was kainet? No, since he was alive when the Shchiv Mirah gave it to the Shliach, so Memela, so he was kainet. How was he kainet? L'churi is only kainet after Mrs. Shchiv Mirah. So over here you have to say a chidush, that even though when a person says that tnu mana lepleni, and the money finds itself still in the rishus of the Shchiv Mirah, so he's not kain until achar misas Shchiv Mirah, but that's only when he didn't give it to a shliach. Mashenkin over here, since he gave it to a shliach and he said tnu mana to this and this person, hoylech mana to this and this person, so then it's kain even b'chayev of the Shchiv Mirah. Even b'chayev of the Shchiv Mirah, it's already kain. And memela, so if he was alive when the Shchiv Mirah gave it to the Shliach, so Memele, he was kainet b'chayev of the Shchiv Mirah. That's chidush, one chidush. And then there's another issue, because l'chura we learned until now that hoylech lav keschi, 10 is keschi, but not hoylech is keschi. So l'chura, if a bari says to someone hoylech mana lepleni, so you could still have charata because hoylech is lav keschi. So l'chura over here the Shchiv Mirah said hoylech. So how was that recipient kainet? So it's nacha chidush. So over here by a Shchiv Mirah is punkt fakert, and it's normally by a bari, if he says hoylech mana lepleni, the person won't be zeicha. Mashenken over here the Shchiv Mirah miksad is din of divri Shchiv Mirah kiksuvim kimsurim dami. So over here, even though he said hoylech, and even though the Shchiv Mirah is still alive, but the recipient is kainet. So it's, in other words, when a Shchiv Mirah gives something to someone, and he says hoylech mana lepleni, and that person is alive, so as soon as and he said hoylech, so the din is that person was kaina. That person was kaina. But obviously, if he wasn't alive anymore when he gave it to him, so he wasn't kaina and kinya lemes. And memela, you have to give it back to the yarshim of the Shchiv Mirah. Halacha Yud Gimel. Shchiv Mirah she'amar tnu masayim zuz lepleni, u'shleish mei zuz lepleni, va'arba mei zuz lepleni. So he said in the star, 200 for this one, 300 for this one, and 400 for this one. So it's altogether is 900. Is ein emrim hakoidim b'shtar zocha. We don't say necessarily, unless if there's no 900, so whoever the 200 comes before the 300 and they come before the 400, because it was all one star. And since it's one star, the order that it was written in the star doesn't make a difference. Lefichach im lehi niach chameis, if he didn't actually leave 900, is cholkin hanimtza lefi mashakasalam. So you divide the nimtza lefi mashakasalam. So since he was supposed to get 200, he was supposed to get 300, he was supposed to get 400. So basically you would say he gets 2/9, and he gets 3/9, and he gets 4/9. That's the Seder Advar. The im yotza olav shtarchev. Now this is talking about if a shtarchev came out against them, even if they received what they were supposed to get. Let's say they got 200, let's say the Taka got 200 and 300 and 400. And now there's a shtarchev against them. So the din is goyva mikulam, mikol echad ve'echad, mikal fi mashakosavlam. So now he takes from each one proportionally. Kesad. Hoya hachev arba meiz v'chamishim. The chev was 450. It was 450. So bala masayim leisin. So the 450 really has 9 50s. There's 9 times 50 is 450. Now the bala masayim he got 2 9s, so he's also responsible for 2 9s, so he has to give 100. Bala masayim leisin meya. Ubala shleish meiz, which got 3 9s, so he gives meya v'chamishim. So he's responsible for 3 9ths of the chayv. Ubal ha'arba meiz, which got 4 9ths, so he is nice in masayim. He gives 200. So in other words, they receive proportionally and they give it proportionally. They receive, in other words, if there's less than 900, so one gets 2 9ths, the other one gets 3 9ths, and the other one gets 4 9ths. And if they received whatever they received, so he pays back 2 9ths, and he pays back 3 9ths, and he pays back 4 9ths. Halacha Yudalit. Avalim Omer. That's talking about that he didn't make an order. He just said Tnu Masayim Zuz Lepleni, Shleish Mei Zuz Lepleni, and Arba Mei Zuz Lepleni. Avalim Omer Tnu Masayim Zuz Lepleni, and then he says Va'achrov Shleish Mei Lepleni, Va'achrov Arba Mei Lepleni. So he added the word Va'achrov. So then Kol Hakedem B'Shtar Zocher Lefichach. Im Yotzal of Shtarchev. So it works both ways. First, the first one gets the money. If there's anything less, the second one gets the money. And if there's anything left, the third one gets the money. And al derazeh Yotzal of Shtarchev. So since he was the last one that got the money, is gave him an achron. So he takes an achron. They took first. The first and the second took first. The achron gets he's the one that got the last, so he's like gets the last and knows he's the one that's not leaving b'nei chayrin, is gave him an achron. Ein lei gave him mishalefanov, and ein lei gave him mishalefnefanov. Halacha tezvav. Shchiv mirasha omar yoder pleni bebayizeh, or yoichel pleni peiras dekel zeh, is leomar klum, because since he's not being makna the guf is belonging to the yorshim, he's only being makna this chusay ishtamshus, so that you can't be makna chusay ishtamshus. Shari lihikna am dover sheyesh b'mamish. You can't be makna a dover she'en b'mamish, shahadira v'achilu kiyetzrem harein kedibur u'kishein she'en nikna. Just like you can't be makna words, you can't be makna sleep, you can't be makna dira, living. Living, and this is, or Paris is all dover she'en b'mamish. He didn't say that the dira is his, in other words, the ability to live there is his. But he's saying the house is his in order for him to live there for a certain amount of time. Give him the dekel, just like we learned b'negei hakno, you can't be makna this dover, a dover she'en b'mamish, but you could be makna the dover leperesav al derech over here. You could give away the dekel leperes. Dvar of kayom shari hiklam haguf leperes. V'adover v'haguf is dover sheyesh b'mamish v'chein kol kiyetz b'zeh. Since the guf is a dover sheyesh b'mamish, so mele that you could be makna.